Earlier this year, EA shared that it was partnering with Marvel to work on a single-player Iron Man game, but now it seems like that relationship is going even deeper because the publisher has just added 2 more superhero titles to the mix. In today's video, we're going to talk about these new titles, the studios that are going to make them, and of course some extra details about the upcoming Iron Man game. So keep watching. First off, EA's new partnership with Marvel. It's been kind of insane to see EA's recovery over the past few years, especially with all the kerfuffle with Battlefront 2. As I said, the publisher was hands down considered the root of all evil in the gaming industry. Since the company's pivot to more diverse single-player experiences, though, we've seen a massive shift, and now it's almost like they've regained their goodwill. Well, at least enough to get 3 different Marvel projects. Now, the fact that EA's working with them isn't that big of a surprise. After all, this has been the predominant rumor over the past 6 months. What's more, the publisher has also switched up its strategy for announcing these titles. Seriously though, when was the last time we even had an Electronic Arts showcase? Yep, it's been ages. That being said, perhaps we've all needed this change, because the thing is, no one likes unfinished demos that don't look like the final product anyway. Still, the fact that a company like Marvel is willing to throw 3 of its franchises into EA's hands without testing the waters is a testament to its commitment to the gaming side of things. You could say that the video game maker already has a great relationship with Disney due to their past work on the Star Wars franchise. At the same time though, you've got to remember that they didn't exactly do those games justice, and it was only Respawn's Jedi Fallen Order and Motive Squadrons that launched in a good state. What's more, EA credits Star Wars' success for the Marvel deal. Just in case you were wondering why EA has decided to take on such a massive deal again, especially after everything that went down with Star Wars, here's your answer. They believe that the Star Wars deal was a success. Now, we don't know what metrics they're using for these, because the last time we checked, everyone despised them for hogging up the franchise. For real though, the fact that they only made 4 or 5 games in around 10 years shows just how bad the mismanagement was. Oh, and then there's that cancelled Ragtag game being developed by Amy Hennig and Visceral Studios. Like, that was genuinely one of the most impressive demos we've seen, perhaps ever, and yet it was the publisher's obsession with live service titles back then that deprived us of that. Having said that, the EA of 2017 will be very different from what it is now. Not only have they learned from their mistakes with Battlefront 2, but they've also started to give their developers a lot more creative freedom. We've got to thank Vince Zampella for that though, because without Respawn making Jedi Fallen Order, we probably wouldn't have gotten here. Also, while the company came under fire for screwing up both of its modern Battlefront entries, the series still managed to sell over 35 million units, so things weren't as bad as they seemed. Up next, what could these 2 Marvel games be? The official statement published by EA didn't give many hints as to what these new projects could be. The only thing that's even worth picking out of it is the fact that each of these games will be its own original story set in the Marvel universe, and the rest is just marketing mumbo-jumbo that frankly we're not going to bore you with. But hey, we've got other sources to dig into. The industry insider Jeff Grubb, for instance, revealed earlier last month that a game based on the superhero Black Panther is currently in development. What's more, it's supposedly meant to be a third-person single-player experience, kind of similar to Insomniac's Spider-Man or Eidos Montreal's Guardians game. The second game, however, is a bit more tricky to guess at, as it hasn't been leaked at all. But despite the fact that 2 of these projects are known to be more single-player focused, the third one's pretty likely to be a multiplayer experience. After all, you can take EA out of live service, but you can't take live service out of EA. Plus, judging by how successful Marvel Snap has been, we wouldn't be shocked if it's a different type of game. Let's just hope that whatever it turns out to be is better than Marvel's Avengers, because phew, that was rough. Then again, at least the situation isn't as dire as Warner Brothers. Yeah, we're looking at you, Gotham Knights. Coming up, which studios could be working on these games? Alright, so while Motive's working on the Iron Man game, we don't have any official confirmation about the other projects. But again, Jeff Grubb rarely misses, so we're inclined to believe him. According to the Giant Bomb reporter, EA is currently whipping up an entirely new team to work on the Black Panther project. And guess what? It's being headed by former Monolith production studio head Kevin Stevens. Now, if you didn't already know, Monolith was responsible for the brilliant Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, and Shadow of War games. Plus, since this Black Panther project is also meant to be an open-world adventure, we're sure that this new studio will have no issues with direction. Figuring out the second studio is a lot trickier though. It's entirely possible that the game hasn't even gone into pre-production yet. Still, if we were to throw a dart in the dark, we'd have to go with Respawn, because they continue to be the most prolific developer for EA. That being said, even though they've now got several teams working on different projects like Apex Legends and Star Wars Jedi Survivor, we're not too sure if they could even fit another game into the schedule. Besides, the company's framing this as a quote-unquote long long-term commitment, so maybe they're going to wait until Jedi Survivor's finished anyway. Now for some new details about the upcoming Iron Man game. While EA's announcement of a triple game deal was exciting, the new details we got about their long-awaited Iron Man project easily top that. Like, we've been hearing so much about it over the past few months that it almost seems ready to be revealed. The company officially announced this project back in September, and back then, they even told us that Motive would be working on it. Now, of course, they're the same team that developed Star Wars Squadrons, so they know a thing or two about games that involve flying. Still, this is the studio's first big AAA project. Also, yes, it's finally been confirmed to be a single-player, third-person game. What's more, it's currently in the early stages of development, meaning that we shouldn't expect to see it anytime before 2025. Interestingly, this announcement comes after Avalanche Studios' canceled attempt at making an open-world Iron Man game, so it's going to be fascinating to see whether Motive takes any inspiration from that or not. Not to mention, BioWare could help Motive with Iron Man. Speaking of inspiration, BioWare's Anthem was perhaps one of the most impressive games ever made in terms of its flying mechanics. Sure, the live service aspect and the gameplay loop weren't great, but just roaming around the world in your suit, no one's done it better. And guess what? They're going to be one phone call away to shed some of their wisdom on game design. Don't get us wrong, we're sure that Motive is perfectly capable of making its own game. It's just that flying is such a core mechanic for an Iron Man game that you just can't afford to miss it. Take Marvel's Avengers, for example. While it wasn't bad or anything, Tony Stark's suit still felt a bit too contained, almost as if it were on rails, and that's something Motive's got to avoid at all costs, especially since they're not going to have any other playable characters in their game. Finally, Marvel's ready to allow more creative freedom. Over the past decade or so, we've seen a ton of canceled video game projects, especially from Marvel and Lucasfilm. Of course, not all of them were canned for the same reason, but the overarching consensus was that they were just too strict with their creative visions. Oh, and then there were issues with budget and time constraints too. With their latest foray into the industry though, Marvel is ready to listen to developers who have interesting ideas. So whether you're a AAA studio with decades of experience or have just whipped up an indie team, they're not going to discriminate. All they need is a strong vision, a concept, and well, that's it. Now, of course, the projects that are going to come out of this approach are still probably years down the line. Still, it's going to be very interesting to see what sort of wacky ideas people come up with for their Marvel games. An Avengers dating sim? Anyone? Alright, we'll see ourselves out. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think EA is the right choice for these Marvel projects? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.